as only he can. Charging around the course in 2 minutes 12.63 seconds, his personal best for the week, and pole position for today's Tooheys 1000.
Pretty good lap. I got a little bit untidy in a couple of spots, but that's about as good as we can do.
Well, if that was untied and you've got pole position, you've got a little bit up your sleeve, you're saying that?
No, not really. I think that's about as quick as we can go.
So here's how the top 10 will line up today. Scape and Jim Richards in the number 1 Nissan from pole. 2, the GIO GTR of Gibbs and Rowan Onslow. 3, the Peter Jackson Sierra with Seaton and Greg Hansford. 4, the number 18 Shell Sierra of John Bow and Terry Shield. 5, the Pride of Queensland, Dickie Johnson and Kiwi Paul Radisich in the number 17 Shell Sierra. 6, the Mobile 05 Commodore of Peter Brock and Andrew Madecki. 7, the number 2 Nissan of Drew Price and Gary Walden. 8 is Larry Perkins and Thomas Mazira in the number 11 Mobile Commodore. From 9, David Parsons and Wayne Park in the Peter Jackson Sierra. And 10, the defending champions Win Percy and Alan Grice in the Holden Racing Team Commodore.
Yes, there is the top 10, and tremendous interest this year as to just who will be King of the Mountain. Peter Brock is having his 23rd start in the race. And now back with the General, Peter Perfect is chasing his 10th win here at Mount Panorama.
Football, meat pies, Peter Brock and Holden cars have been part of our sporting heritage for over 2 decades. Peter's winning ways at Mount Panorama commenced in 1972. Since then, he's called at Victory Lane on 9 occasions, all for Holden. 75 was the era of the SLR 5000. 78 and 79 he teamed with Jim Richards in the A9X, before giving Commodore its first victory in 1980. A hat-trick with Larry Perkins in 82, 83 and 84 saw the lad from Eltham finally dubbed Peter Perfect. His 9th win was a rebound ace from FISA when the sport's governing body TKO'd the Eggenberger Sierras from the 87 results. Brocky has since tried unsuccessfully to win Bathurst for both BMW and Ford. But this year he's back with the great Aussie V8 engineered by Larry Perkins. And somehow, podium visit number 10 does seem a reality.
Well, in the words of 9 times champion Peter Brock, the key to Bathurst is teamwork between the drivers, the cars and the pit crews. One mistake from any area and months of preparation can literally count for nothing. Neil Crompton, a starter in today's race, knows only too well the importance of pit crews.
It may be a well-worn motor racing cliche, but races like the Tooheys 1000 are very often won or lost in the pits. Pit stops and vehicle servicing efficiency are critical. Up to 11 people must work together with military precision under the pressure of a stopwatch in difficult and dangerous conditions. It's a task that's often bungled, and when things do go wrong, it usually spells the end of that team's chance of success. So in that flurry of noise and activity, what exactly is going on? Let's look at the Glenn Seaton Greg Hansford Ford Sierra as an example. When the Sierra rockets into the pit lane, the drill begins, and in this case, 11 specialists leap to work. The cast includes a car manager up front, 2 drivers, 4 wheelmen, 2 refuelers, 1 vent bottle operator and a fireman. The rules dictate that no more than 7 people, excluding the drivers, are allowed to touch the car at any given moment. Today we can expect cars like the Sierra to make up to 4 stops. The first is for fuel, tyres and a driver change. The second for fuel, tyres, a driver change and front brake pads. The third for fuel, tyres, a driver change and possibly rear pads. And the fourth, and hopefully final, for fuel, tyres, maybe a driver change and front brake pads. When the car comes to a halt, an air coupling is attached at the nose and 4 internal air jacks lift the Sierra off the ground. The wheelmen remove the lock nut with air-operated rattle guns. This car has centre lock single nut wheels. Other teams may run 5 studded wheel fixings and nuts. Up above you can see the gantry holds the air lines clear of the car. Now, a fuel, tyre and driver change stop generally takes around about 30 seconds. This stop, where the team performs those functions, plus a brake pad change, about 60-75 seconds. At the front of the car, once the wheel is removed, The tricky process of changing brake pads commences, usually a very tough task if the pads have buckled or jammed. But we'll come back to this process. Behind me, the drivers are already into their gymnastics. Now, hang on a minute, guys. Let's slip into rewind and have a closer look at this. Greg's opened the door and unclipped Glenn's radio cord. The driver normally undoes his belt as he's about to stop, and the current rules permit the engine to be running. Once they've swapped, the departing driver then hooks up the radio as the driver does battle with the 6-point harness. And while all this action is unfolding, the car manager's busy cleaning the normally filthy windscreen and checking all the fluid levels under the bonnet. This is what it all looks like from back here. The refuelers are dumping 120 litres of fuel into the dry brake tank system. The Seaton team uses individual fuel churns. Other teams may use an overhead tank and hose. The churns hold 40 litres each. Over here, the vent bottle holder is standing by ready to catch the overflow when the tank's full. Let's explain the dry brake fueling system a bit better. The spring-loaded nozzle on the churn is pushed into the spring-loaded receiver. When they're coupled, there's no spillage of fuel. To enable the fuel to dump freely, the system is vented. The churns are vented here, and the tank breathes via a vent bottle. This clear bottle is pushed into an identical coupling system and the cap on the bottle's open. It takes about 10 seconds to empty each churn, and they're heavy. The fuel rushes in unimpeded, and once the tank is full, the vent bottle begins to fill. Rod will then rip the bottle back, and the spring-loaded valve seals the tank and there's no spill. Now back to the brake pad change up front. Once Paul's wrestled the old mangled pads out of the caliper, he uses the pliers again to squeeze the pistons back and fits the new pads. Let's look at that again. With the pads removed, he then squeezes back the hydraulic pistons. When they're right back into the caliper, there's sufficient clearance to fit the new full-width meaty brake pads. Glenn's car doesn't have retaining bridges at the front of the calipers, so all Paul has to do is fit the pads and snap in the retaining clip. Then the wheel goes back on. This whole process is hot and dangerous work. The old pads are smouldering away at about 800 degrees C, and nothing in the wheel well would be cooler than about 200 degrees C. Now there's a couple of extra considerations. Remember that once you've pulled off the circuit and you're not at racing speed, you're losing a heap of time to the opposition. So the time it takes to get in and out of the pits is critical. You'd be staggered by the number of disasters that can and do occur in these stops, but when you get them constantly right and your on-track performance is upwards, you can smoke the opposition.
Affable Queenslander Dick Johnson is one of the most popular drivers in the country. Over the years, the fans have warmed to the man who's continually defied the odds.
Finishing between a rock and a hard place at Bathurst in 1980 inadvertently launched Dick Johnson into the touring car big time, and he hasn't looked back since. A year later, he was crowned King of the Mountain after the race was declared 43 laps short due to the monumental stack at Skyline. On that occasion, though, Johnson was in the right place at the right time. His Australian Touring Car Championship record is impressive, with 5 wins since 1981. Johnson and Bathurst meant drama for many years, but in '89, at the height of the Shell Sierra reign, Dick nailed his second victory, thanks to faithful side